Yeah. Is it? What are you seeing?
Is it on?
Not yet. I mean, yeah. I'm live right now, but it's just the screen. It's just like the Nick Valencia news thing. And we're live for the latest edition of Nick Valencia Live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our latest show here. Today is one of the first days of October. I don't even know what day it is. October 2nd? October 2nd. I can't believe we're already here in October. And we've had quite a busy week. One of the calls that I had today, I'll just jump right into it, was with Dave Decker. Dave Decker is a photographer out of Tampa Bay, but he spent a lot of time recently outside of the Broadview facility in Chicago, where we're seeing a lot of action and a lot of resistance against immigration officials. Broadview facility is one of the detention centers where immigrants, undocumented immigrants, are first taken to be processed. It is very much so like the Metropolitan Detention Center in Los Angeles, which has been one of the epicenters of activity to show people standing up to law enforcement activity, federal agents all across the street, some of them masked federal agents, some of them, we don't really even know what agency they're working for. They refuse to identify themselves, and it's been a big concern from citizens all across the country. Chicago being one of the latest hotspots for Trump's deportation army. We're going to talk about that next week, but, goes without saying, I would be remiss to not mention what's happening in Chicago right now. Look, guys, we're really excited to be joined by a couple guests today. There has been a lot of necessity for independent journalism, for independent voices. We see what's happening with the media landscape. We see people bending their knee to the Trump administration, buckling to the pressure of financial pressure, the potential of not having their mergers go through, or just really being singled out by the Trump administration. That fear has led a lot of the media in this country to really sort of quiet down, which is why we think it's so important what we're doing. It's not necessarily a liberal bias in the media. It's much more, from my understanding and from my experience, I should say, an elitism bias. And that's something that it's not any ounce of elitism in our next guest. Our next guest is somebody who joined, who's been really part of sort of the resistance movement in the country. The Sidewalk School is a very popular Instagram page. It has more than 60,000 followers. And I believe we're joined in the waiting room by the founder and co-director, Felicia. Hey, how are you? Come on in here.
Hi.
Welcome to Nick Valencia News.
Hi, Nick. I'm doing fine. And thank you for having me.
I'm really, really grateful. It goes without saying that a lot of people have been following your work and what you're doing, and just sort of, I really mean when I say that it feels like you're part of the resistance in this country right now. Do you feel that? Is that sort of part of the mission of what you're doing?
Yes. And let me say, we've been working with, I hate to say immigrants because people,
Yeah.
but along the southern border for 6 years, just on the Mexico side. This year's our first year on U.S. soil doing this type of work. But yes, it does feel like the resistance, definitely. Just in a lot of upsetting different ways that I'm having to get used to now.
A lot of people know your work. They're very familiar with the efforts that you're doing to try to, flag this action of federal agents. We've seen you show up to immigration cases. We've seen you show up to be witnesses for people during their court cases. Tell people who may not be so familiar with your work what it is that you do on a daily basis.
So on the U.S. side, we are legal observers,
Mm-hmm.
but with that comes recording people being taken by ICE once they step outside of the courthouse. And so it's really documenting people who would otherwise go missing and no one would know, not even their loved ones, what happened to them. Personally, I've watched many times people be surprised by these ICE agents approaching them as they walk to their car. So if they're surprised, obviously they didn't tell their mother, their father, their spouse, like, hey, I may be taken today.
One of the videos, and feel that we have it queued up. Our producer Eric Sandoval went through your social media, and one of the videos I want to show our audience. It was a clip that went viral. It was a woman who was pushed down inside of a courtroom, in a courthouse rather, in New York. And the ICE agent, from what we understand, I don't really believe the official narrative on this, but he was apparently disciplined. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him pop up somewhere else as part of some other unit. But I want to, if we have a moment here, Eric, I'd love to play the video of what happened there. That's hard to watch for a lot of us because we know that that video and that type of situation is not unique. Felicia, can you describe to us what happened there?
So let me say the officer is already on duty again. He went back to work on Monday. But it was simply a woman asking for ICE to be kind and let her husband go. ICE agents, they have the discretion actually to let people go if they want to.
Yes.
So anyone would ask, hey, can you let my loved one go? This ICE agent in particular, though, decided to get violent with her and put his hands on her and actually assaulted her. He did assault her. She went to the hospital afterwards. And even though that's all on camera and it's recorded and now millions of people have seen it, he went back to work on Monday.
They're not even treated like human beings. That's the problem that I have with this, is that this sort of man-made construct that we have that labels people as illegal when we know no one is illegal. No one should have that characterization, but it's like this man-made construct all of a sudden gives people this ammunition, it feels, to treat people lesser than, which is why it's so important what you're doing and the work that you're doing. I mean, you mentioned that some families may not have any evidence that their loved one was taken if not for people like you in this country.
That is very true. Let me just say, starting out doing this, it wasn't my intention of let me just go record people being taken. Legal observing is really important for many reasons. One of the main ones is you have to know how U.S. laws are changing in immigration. That's really, really important, and everyone should try to stay on top of that. That being said, it changes every day. But the first day I went to legal observing, the entire afternoon docket was taken by ICE agents. We watched as one person after the next was taken. And it was shocking to me and the priest who were witnessing the entire docket being taken that day. After that first day, I knew I had to keep going every single week, which I have.
Wow. And as a legal observer in one of those cases, my executive producer was telling me that it seemed as though, if not for you and the priest, the person that was there at risk of being deported may have been deported right then and there. Can you tell us about what happened there?
Yeah, that's one of the saddest requests I received. I do post people's disappearances on my social media because it's important. People should know. And it was a mother with two minor children. She's a single parent, and she reached out to me, and her request was for me to record her taking, her and her two minor children taking by ICE. And that really bothered me. And I did sit on that for almost 2 weeks because it's upsetting. But when it came down to it, by Wednesday night, Victor, the other director of the Sidewalk school, he was like, you'd be really upset if they were taken and they were alone. And he was right. And so we were like, okay, we're going to go. We drove over 5 hours to go to her court hearing. Let me also say we brought a Catholic priest with us there as well.
Yeah.
They're
Optics
very helpful.
matter,
Yes,
I mean, that clearly mattered to the judge, who gave her, at least another opportunity to get an attorney.
It did. The judge was shocked to see a Catholic priest sitting there, the Homeland Security lawyer. His mouth literally dropped wide open as he turned around to see there was a Catholic priest sitting in her hearing. The judge brought the priest up many times throughout her hearing, and she also brought up Victor and I. That's something I left out of the story because we had to say who we were and why we were there. But she did give a continuance to Johanna. because she was like, you have these people here vouching for you. So yeah, I'll give you a continuance.
I've had the benefit of being able to go into these immigration hearings as well, and that's what struck out to me. I was at Port Isabel, I believe in 2018 or 2019 during the first phase of family separation, and it was shocking to me how disarmed the judge and the DHS attorneys were to see someone else there in the courtroom. It's as if they count on no one else being there other than the person that they're trying to deport. And there's no advocacy there. There's no, it when somebody is able to do things in the darkness, good faith goes out the window, right? The
Right.
immigration judge in the case that I was at didn't make a decision on the spot, and me and my crew, we really, thought he probably didn't make a decision because we were in the courtroom there. So what you're doing is, my point is, what I'm saying is, what you're doing matters. And I want to drill down on this, Felicia, because what you're doing matters so much. I want to know what sparked your activism. Like, what's your background and why get involved in what you're doing?
Oh, so after that story went viral, I've had some people reach out to me. And like I said, the Sidewalk School, we've been around since 2019. We worked
Wow.
inside the original Matamoros encampment. We've worked inside 11 encampments in Matamoros and Reynosa.
I was there too.
So,
I've been to that one. God, oh my
yeah.
gosh.
So yeah, we built a shelter in Reynosa. We had clinics in both cities. Like the Sidewalk School is actually pretty huge on the Mexico side. It was only when we stepped on U.S. soil, people were like, "And who are you? And what do you do?" So legal observing was actually pretty easy to get into. We know the lawyers here. We've been working with them for years. So I did kind of have like a kind of a little step up because I already knew everyone around me. And the
Mhm.
Catholic priest, we've been working with them for years as well. So it really worked out well for everybody, at least here. Here.
How do you see the involvement of the Catholic Archdiocese? Because they've been, when we talk about religious groups, we spent some time in South Florida, spoke to the Archdiocese of Miami, and he was very full throated about what he sees as inhumane conditions in Alligator Alcatraz. It's as if the Catholics that we spoke to were the only ones willing to speak any, sort of concern or really highlight the injustices that we're seeing committed by the Trump administration.
I Well, I know. So yesterday, what's today? Today is Thursday.
Tuesday. Oh,
It's
Thursday.
Thursday. So on Tuesday, when we were at the hearing, the priest who I go with every single week, we were talking about the harassment and the intimidation that goes along with it. And let me say, it's amped up a lot for me personally. On Tuesday,
Yeah.
I had experiences I never had before with 3 different law enforcement agencies. And as I was standing there speaking to the priest, he was like, "Do you think they're going to do this to me? Do you think they're going to walk up to me with their phones and put it in my face and record me? Do you think they're going to like go out to my car and like they did with you?" And I was like, "No, Father." I was like, "You're a priest." I was like, "They're probably going to just leave you alone." But he turned to me and he goes, "This is really messing with my mental health." And I mean, it was surprising to me, but it's hard to hear. And he wasn't the only one that day. Like I said, the intimidation tactics where I live has picked up a lot. And it was other people who were saying on Tuesday, like, "This is messing with my mental health. I don't know how much more I can take being harassed by law enforcement."
The Catholics within the Trump administration, principally Tom Homan, should feel a type of way about that. They feel very proud of their Catholic background. And someone has highlighted to me, though, they're like the extremist Catholics, like the Opus Dei kind of Catholics. The Latin Mass. They don't feel like the Catholics of our peer group or whatever. Thinking they're hardcore enough. And so maybe someone like a Catholic priest who's accompanying you in good faith is potentially going to be a target, which is crazy. That's crazy that you're having a priest feel these ways when, they're a man of the cloth. They should feel
Yes.
integrity wherever they go.
I was asked, like, does he wear his full garb or his, and I'm like, yes, every week it is very clear this is a priest. Like, very clear. You cannot mistake that I'm sitting with priests. But just let me say, where I live in South Texas, there's also a lot of Catholics in this area.
Yeah.
And so when the priests are outside watching these takings or disappearances happening, initially the first couple of months, they really backed off. They wouldn't handcuff the person. They would try to smile at the person. It was kind of like, oh, okay, but you're still going to take them. Yeah, I'm going to take them, but I'm smiling and I'm not touching them. Unlike the last 2 weeks where they're chaining them, their wrists, their ankles, and the person is willingly going with them. But like on Tuesday, they had 12 officers out there for like one man.
Wow. And we're about 3 months or 100 days into, into the siege, the ice siege of America. We call it the ice siege of Los Angeles, and we see that spreading out across the country. You see this ramping up. I mean, I do too. In fact, I joined my friend and colleague Jim Acosta last week because we had a series of, what he called ice gone wild. We're seeing, these traumatic incidents. We're seeing these untrained, unqualified, fast-tracked federal agents that are now on the streets that are not de-escalating these situations, but ramping them up. Do you see this getting worse as well?
Oh, this is definitely getting worse. The other thing my page does, or I try to do when I have time, is I post videos of ICE around the US.
Mm-hmm.
And since Monday, it's so many videos coming out of Chicago, especially. Like,
Yes.
it is amazing what they're doing in Chicago. They're blocking off streets. And even right now, before I got on here with you, right now in McAllen, Texas, they raided a row of warehouses and brought everyone outside and lined them up against the wall. This is definitely intensifying. And let me say, last night here where I live, and usually they stop at 5 p.m., they were going at 7 p.m. and they raided another business. So it's definitely ramping up. And who they're taking, whether you're an American citizen or not, does not seem to matter. They're going
No.
just after a brown person.
It is very clear to myself and to my team that this is racial profiling, and that the demographics of those that we see in custody, they do not reflect the demographics of the undocumented immigrants in America. They're mostly brown men. They're ripping apart men who are primary breadwinners from their families and leaving women and children behind, and then going after the women and children. I mean, we focused on a case in Utah where they got the son, the father, and then about 3 months later, they stayed true to their word and they picked up the mom. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up, Felicia, I do think it's getting worse too, and I think that this is a calculated effort. In July, I was in Chicago, and we saw and spotted federal agents sort of canvassing the area. At that time, there was a Puerto Rican festival and an upcoming Colombian festival. There was a lot of concern that they were going to show up at the Puerto Rican festival because to people in the Trump administration, it seems that they can't make sense between an American territory and a Latin American country. And so there was fear. And then here we go, a month later, a month and a half later, here we are, right? We're seeing this happen. So how do you, for somebody who is so involved, who is so inextricably linked with getting people to care, what are those conversations like with people? Because I know how conservative South Texas is, parts of it anyway. What are the conversations like with people who are saying, hey, these are illegals. This is what they got. This is what they have coming to them.
It has been very hard. Let me also say, yesterday when we went to get lunch in downtown, we ran into 3 ICE agents.
Sure.
And it was so uncomfortable. They had their meeting on speakerphone. That's how we knew they were 3 ICE agents. So they are surrounding us down here in the Rio Grande Valley. But with that being said, as most people know, my region turned red and they voted for Trump. And Victor and I recently went to meet our rep at a function he threw for people in our city. And we were still the outcast. Mm-hmm. Everyone was applauding, and everyone in that room was brown. Everybody. And I still can't really make sense of why anyone, regardless of your skin color, would be okay with what's happening and applauding it.
I think part of the rite of passage for the immigrant in this country in America is the rejection of where your origins are. It's like you almost have to reject or talk down where you came from in order to really absorb or assimilate into being American, American, quote unquote. And, when I went down I've spent a lot of time in the Rio Grande Valley, and I went down there to highlight Latinos for Trump. There was a whole chapter that was very influential in South Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley, McAllen, Harlingen, Brownsville. This is a pocket of Trump supporters, and right across the river, you have Tamaulipas, the state of Tamaulipas, which includes Reynosa, includes Matamoros. There is a high volume of traffic of undocumented immigrants that come across, and they have fallen victim to the propaganda from the Trump administration that that's the enemy and they make you look bad, right? And that's sort of the assessment that I've taken from it. I mean, it must be really difficult doing the type of work you're doing to be around people like that.
It's mind-boggling to
Yeah.
me. And let me say, so I am Black and Mexican.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have gotten into many conversations with just brown people about what it is. Why do you feel this way? And I do agree. People don't want to be Mexican. And I'm like, when did that become bad? But it's like, no, now we're an American. And now, this is how we are and this is what we do. And I'm like, how awful that you feel like you have to throw your identity away to fit into this country. But yes, I do agree. And it's hard to see because in the end, they are not, Trump doesn't want them either. Trump doesn't want them. But that's a hard thing for people to hear. I said that
Yeah.
before in a meeting with NGOs. I said it a little bit more crassly and everyone just got real quiet, but that is the truth. When it comes down to it, if y'all are all in a room together, he would detain all of you and they would go on their way.
The proximity to whiteness is not going to save anyone in this country, which leads me to my follow-up question. We had a guest on earlier this week who says, do you think these private prisons are going to stop at the undocumented? They're going to work with lawmakers and go after a segment of the community that's labeled undesirable. So I asked you this, Felicia, do you see that your work is going to evolve eventually? Are you preparing for that? Because we're in it for the long haul here.
I was asked that last night by a lawyer, and I've been thinking about it. It most likely will. The sidewalk school changes so often.
Yeah.
So I would say my answer is yes, the work will probably evolve and expand if I'm not detained sometime during these 4 years. Like I said, law enforcement has really been harassing and intimidating me this week, like extremely, something I've never experienced before. And I guess the hope is I'll stop going to these hearings and stop reporting them taking people. But I will be there again next week because this is my right, right? We have rights as Americans, supposedly. So, I mean, they're in a public parking lot. I am an American who pays my taxes. I have every right to record whatever I like in that parking lot. And I do. And I will do it again next week.
Are you really concerned? I mean, this is a legitimate concern. People reach out to me all the time and they say, "Oh, you're so brave and you're so courageous." I think at this point I might feel like I don't want, I have mental health issues. I don't want a future trip and think about a day where somebody is monitoring this or watching me or going to put me part of that undesirable. But I mean, for you, it's a reality. It sounds like it's not. These aren't bombastic. This isn't meant to be dramatic or poetic, right? I mean, like these are disappearances, these are abductions, these are kidnappings, like this is authoritarianism,
Right. Yes.
brutal, plain and simple.
I agree. No, I mean, we're getting cameras installed in my car this week because it has really ramped up for me. So I'm getting cars put in outside and inside my car just in case something happens. That way, at least someone can find me.
If you're just joining our conversation, you're joined by Felicia Rangel-Samponaro. She is the co-director and founder of the Sidewalk School, which has been instrumental in documenting some of these ICE detentions and arrests. And in some cases, as Felicia highlighted, it's the only evidence that these loved ones of those that are detained have that they've been taken into custody. And we know how important that is because of just how these people are being treated like luggage and shipped around from one facility to the next. 1,000 people missing are not on the paperwork in Alligator Alcatraz. Countless families that have told us that their loved ones have been moved 5, 10, 14 times in the matter of a few weeks. Your page is really doing so much to help document what's going on in this country. And we really want to thank you so much. Is there anything that we haven't asked you that is important to know or any message that you really want to get out now that you have the time?
Oh my gosh, I wasn't ready for that question. Um, I guess my only thought would be if you are comfortable with going to courts, to immigration hearings, removal proceedings, then you should do it. You definitely should, because a lot of people, especially where I live, I'm the only one that goes every single week. And people are like, no one else shows up. I'm like, people are scared to show up.
They are.
They're scared. And for very good reason. You get harassed. But if you don't have that type of fear, then you should go and be there for people. One, people appreciate the support. They always tear up, always, when they see that we're there supporting them. And then two, when people get taken, you are probably the only person that's recording this taking or this disappearance. And it's helpful for family looking for the person. It really is.
And you know why they cry, Felicia, is because they're good people and they're being taken for bad reasons. It's
Right.
because they're here and they're contributing to the country and they're confused why a country that they want to be a part of doesn't want them. That's
Right.
why they cry, because they finally see another human being showing up for them, because that's what it's about. These are, like, I love the correction that you said at the start of the show. I hate to call them immigrants, they're people. These are human beings, right? And
Right.
and so thank you for treating someone like a human, because there's so many people that are unwilling to see them as equals.
It. I agree. I hope things change. I don't know, but I mean, the sidewalk school, we always have hope. So my hope is things will change. And if you can, please be kind to other people and help other people.
And how can we follow you? How can we support your work for those of the people following and want to help out?
Please donate to us, sidewalkschool.org, and please follow us on Instagram, The Sidewalk School. And thank you so much, Nick.
Oh, gracias a ti, gracias a usted, al contrario. Felicia Rangel-Samponaro, joining us from the Rio Grande Valley, the co-director and founder of the Sidewalk School. Thank you so much for taking the time with Nick Valencia News. Really, really appreciate that. What a wonderful conversation. What a wonderful person. Felicia has been somebody that we've been following for, I mean, really since the start of our show here, since we launched this project back in June. She was, like she said, she's been around for more than 5-6 years now. They started on the other side of the border and have continued their work now on this side of the border out of necessity, because no one is documenting what's going on. No one is highlighting it. And like she said, I mean, that really is what I want to highlight, is that people like her are, for lack of a better word, ordinary people out there that are just choosing to be extraordinary in this extraordinarily difficult time. We want to pivot here and we want to change gears. And I think I got to vamp a little bit here. Our next guest is not quite ready here, but we were going to be joined in a little bit by Dr. Robert White. Oh, he's ready now. Okay, great. Dr. Robert White joins us from Montgomery, Alabama. He's a longtime friend, and this is his second or third time on the show. I think the last time you were on the show, we cut you off, so we brought you back for a longer time this time, right, Dr. White?
Right, right. I was a part of the affirmative action programming, where you come in at the end, but that's all right. I'm accustomed to it, Nick. Like I said, man,
There-
whatever little piece I can get, man, I'm
There's
happy.
no affirmative action. You're an equal here, my brother. You're an equal. Dr. Robert White joining us from Montgomery, Alabama. Dr. White, we didn't really get an introduction from you last time. I'd love to have you introduce yourself to our audience.
Okay, well, I tell you what, I'm from Tuskegee, Alabama, and which has a history of civil rights and activism in and of
That's right.
itself. Went to Tuskegee University for 2 years, and when I was there, I majored in girls and basketball and partying and really goofed off. I don't even remember my college years really. I remember meeting my wife though. I met her in the
There
library,
you go.
and
There you go. Some good things
yeah,
happen.
there you go. Went to Jones School of Law, and then I started teaching at Alabama State University. Was in-house legal counsel for the Alabama Education Association and managed the elections division for the Secretary of State's office, and came back to teaching. I've been teaching 33 years. I'm a husband, a father, a pastor. I've got one of my prize students in the office with me now, Denise Ringo. She's facilitating this, and she's a communications major. Hint, hint, Nick. And she's about to graduate, and she was really following the conversation that you previously had, and everything that you talked about, Nick. Everything that you talked about has been discussed ad nauseum in the African American experience in dealing with our 500-year plight. And so there's nothing new under the sun, but what does change and what is different is the way and the manner in which we're approaching these issues. That's what's different,
And
right?
that's part of the reason why we wanted to have you and why we're so grateful to have you. You know, part of our conversation and what we hit off was trying to find parallels and similarities, the intersectionalities between the Black and brown community. I grew up in Northeast LA where it was almost like Black state over there, the SA state over here. We were separated and we were fighting over the crumbs, right? I move out
Right,
to Atlanta. All of a sudden, my best friends are Black. And I'm like, wait a minute, why aren't we closer in Los Angeles? And
right.
then you appeared in my life. And I want to highlight a series of a really, something that educated me. I watched the videos last night. We wanted to highlight a series on Black manhood and American politics, something that you could find from Dr. White on YouTube. I believe we have that clip and want to play a segment of it.
During the Jim Crow period, some towns in Alabama, like Cullman, Boaz, and Wetumpka, were notorious for lynchings to the point that they earned the label of being sundown towns, meaning that black people needed to be off the streets in those cities before the streetlights came on because white mobs called night riders were on the lookout for a Negro who had the misfortune of being caught on the streets after dark. For some doomed souls, they became the main course at a picnic, which is a byword in Southern lynching culture for a public event whereby a Negro was picked, lynched, and showed off as like a trophy deer as onlookers engaged in a meal.
God, I had
Right.
no idea the origins of that word. Talk to me a little bit and expand on some of your research and what you found and what that what this series is all about.
Sure. Well, what we've been doing is we've been doing deep dive research. My colleagues and I, different activists and students and so forth, on the relationship of the African American experience to that of other people, and even in other time periods. And the conversation that you were previously having is very relevant because what it appears that's taking place now here again, the challenges are the same, but the way we're responding is not the same. And we have to recapture what was learned in the past, but if we don't study, if and I would advise everyone listening, including the guest that you previously had, to
Yeah,
read Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail, because in it is the strategy necessary for challenging and successfully defeating this regime. It's been done before, but what has to happen is we should know more. We should have studied, right? And the time that we had to freely study this stuff, has passed. So now we have to use platforms like this in order to rebuild our consciousness, right? Because what we're dealing with a generation of people that have lost their consciousness.
that's right.
And other people have used the term woke. Well, woke just means conscious, right? It just
Hmm.
means that you're aware of the events and circumstances that are shaping your existence. But if you have a lifestyle that doesn't challenge you, it is possible, like a lot of people, even during the civil rights movement, to do what Martin Luther King said: to sleep through a revolution.
Wow.
All types of things would be taking place, but because you're distracted and because you're comfortable, right? You'll start looking at other people to do that which God might be calling you to do. So what we're talking about is we're talking about uh, people going back to jail. Okay, civil rights workers weren't afraid of jail. Okay, jail was home to them. And so, as a matter of fact, some of them, they were shocked when they didn't go. Well, like my mother, when she was in high school, she went to jail protesting in Chattanooga, Tennessee. She was a part of the Howard 20, right? Who desegregated the lunch counters in Chattanooga, Tennessee without any kind of violence, without any kind of marching, they just sat in and city council decided to do it, right? But they weren't afraid to go to jail. And if you're afraid to go to jail, this is not for you. So understanding that there are people out there that are going to have to sacrifice themselves. And yes, the light skin, dark skin issue within the Latino community is the same as the light skin, dark skin issue within the African American community. It's called colorism,
Yep.
and that's a part of colonialism, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so the process of decolonizing is still in effect, but you have to educate Latinos on the origin of the hatred of the dark skin and the preference of the light skin. See, there's an origin to it. And it goes back to the islands. It goes back to South America, Brazil, particularly with the Portuguese and the
Portuguese,
African and the Native
right?
American. Yeah, all of them, or the Aboriginal people, all interacting and establishing a hierarchy based on skin complexion. That's why during our resistance movement and during the 50s and 60s, Black Power and then Black is Beautiful were synonymous with each other because anything that's beautiful is powerful. So teaching people their history and their culture actually causes them to appreciate themselves and to appreciate their own beauty. And that's where the political power is going to come from.
And we need
Nobody,
that appreciation of the culture, because right now there is otherism happening, and a lot of it has to do with colorism, right? It's like se ve cara de paisa pero fue por Trump is a phrase that's popular in a new song from a Latino artist, meaning you have a very indigenous face, but you're voting for Donald Trump. We talked
right,
about proximity to whiteness with our last guest, something that I was exposed to growing up, something that did not save me, despite how far I was able to climb in this corporate world. And you talk about meeting the moment and a God shot, right? I mean, I
right,
really believe that. I never intended to be in this position, but the reason I'm here, I believe, is because God wanted me uncomfortable, man. God wanted me to help. I pray every single day for me to do his will and surrender myself to him.
yeah,
And all
right,
I had no intention of being here, Dr. White, of being here in this independent space, of being this voice of sort of trying to meet the moment for my community. But the fact is that I have privileges that I do not shy away from. How I dress, how I talk, my background, and it gives me the ability to speak truth to power in ways that some of my peers do not.
yeah.
And that leads me to my next question to you. Do you see any similarities between that lynching culture and what the history was for Black Americans to right now with Latinidad and Latinos being targeted in this country?
Yeah, you all are gonna have to go through what we went through, and it's an ice water baptism, and we can't do it for you. And there's some things that people have to do for themselves in order to establish their identity, and fighting for their own revolution and fighting for their own independence is a part of it, right? Which means that this struggle is going to create an entirely different group of people, right?
Yes.
And so you have to be prepared for that new nationality that's about to emerge. And
Wow.
so, so there's an African proverb that says, "Who has ever seen a bull elephant born?" You only see them grown. You don't ever see them born. Well, the birth is very gory, it's very bloody, it's very obscene, you see what I'm saying? And so, because you're going to have to hash out a lot of issues, right? Our hashing out of our issues, and when I say our, I mean African American, it was cut short, right? That's because we didn't control our narrative. Other people wrote our history books, other people wrote our civil rights history, other people wrote who Martin Luther King was and who Rosa Parks was and who all these people were, and we never really just sat down and did it for ourselves. So it's capable of taking someone's history and totally reprogramming the people, to avoid the destiny defining, the personality shaping information, right, that a people need. That's why you have to control your history and your narrative and your interpretation of what it is that's true. So uh, confronting the divisions within the Latino community is a major decolonization effort. That's a major one, and it's going to be hard work. When I first saw you, Nick, I don't know if you remember, it was at the Southern Baptist Convention of all places.
Yeah. Yeah. In Tennessee.
Yeah, and you and I both stuck out, right?
Yep, we
I,
did.
as a matter of fact, I got the color suit on that you had on when I met you at the thing. You see?
You're exactly right.
Yeah, and so when I saw you, I said, "Buddy, that joker gonna have a rough time." That's what that's what I said to myself, because there's something about you. Me and the other preachers that you talk to, we all basically said that God is gonna use you in a very special way, but it's not gonna be easy at all. So there's a process and a step, right, that you move into this area of ministry, which is what we basically refer to it as, and there is uh an orientation that you have to go through, right? And it's found in the African American historical record, right? That's what I teach on a day-to-day basis, right? And so the Latino community can benefit so much from what someone like me has to say,
Which is why you're
because
here,
I can.
Dr. White. I benefit every time I talk to you.
Yeah, yeah. And when I say that you have to move toward the shaping of legislation, right, that affects your status, right? Because to be honest with you, the social justice stuff is justly that. I mean, it's a sale, right? And what it does is it energizes people, but it doesn't ever really identify the hard, tangible goals that a people have to push for, right?
The
Well,
remedy is in legislation, is in written.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you have to paint you have to create a vision, Nick. You know what I'm saying? It's just like business. You have to sell it, right? White people have to like it, black people have to like it, Latino people have to like it. You see what I'm saying? So you actually become an ambassador, and you got the look for it, you got the teeth for it, you got the hair for it. See, I don't. I mean, you see what I'm saying? you you got all of the technique, to stand in this space between these three groups of people and say, listen, this is the vision, that we have. Because since ICE, which just hit a Chambers County, which is north of Montgomery County where we
Yeah.
are, they just arrested 51 people. One of my students just told me, at a work site there. Nick, do you know that, I mean, our labor force is depleting, you know
The middle
and it's
class is shrinking in this country. You know what's going to happen here? They're not just going after the violent offenders, which I think everyone is okay with. Dr. White, we should be okay with them getting rid of the murderers, the rapists, the pedophiles, the
right.
bad actors, the
Right.
bad hombres, or whatever they want to call them, but not Maria, the taquera,
Yeah.
not Pedro, the guy that helps my mom out at her house. You know,
Exactly.
these
Exactly.
people are all the people that Felicia was talking about.
Yeah. But see, you
You
do
know,
a disservice to those people. You do a disservice to those people when you don't politically organize. See, because you can't continue to exist like they were existing. It was only going to be, and take it from somebody, like I say, who has a history and a culture. You see what I'm saying? We were fighting so much for voting rights. We were fighting so much for civil rights because you can't exist in a country without rights. See, you can't. There,
and
there, there, that
it's not just a labor force they're losing, and they're also losing thousands of customers. You know, these small
Sure.
businesses are evaporating. The backbone of America, as Republicans call it,
Yeah.
it's going away. You know,
Yeah. And yeah, but don't think that the business community doesn't see that, because they do. They just don't know what to do. And the business community has never known what to do. Right.
well, we hear
So
it several times throughout the places that we've traveled to. My executive producer and I, people talking about amnesty again. People
yeah,
saying, "Hey, look, Reagan did it in '87. Where's the amnesty?" But you know what happened is '87. They like turned the blind eye to the workers or to the companies that were employing the labor. So then, again, we started to climb with the undocumented labor force after everyone got amnesty. You know,
but
there
do you
needs to be
know,
consequences. There
but do
needs
you
to be.
know a lot of workers are actually the ones that keep the corporations afloat? And see the whole thing is this, right? The whole thing. I know this sounds weird, right? But
No, you're a
labor.
smart man. You're
Yeah,
a
yeah,
smart man.
absolutely. Labor unions are the ones that actually keep these businesses afloat, because the administrators and the management, they have no idea of what they're doing. But the thing is that we fail when we don't hold them accountable and we don't organize to a point to where we can benefit. You see what I'm saying? For our own
Yes.
contribution.
Yes.
So the state that we're in now, I don't blame Trump. I don't blame anybody. If I got to point the responsibility, it's on us for not continuing to organize and strengthen ourselves politically and make the best stand and make the best stake, for just what it is that we have to offer. So
You know, people say
now,
Trump, when they bring him up to me and they start saying he's dumb or whatever. No, this man was brilliant. He was a brilliant manipulator, and he pushed on a nerve of people that felt disenfranchised and disillusioned and
yeah,
overlooked.
and
And it
here
was a
again,
lack, you're right, it was a lack of us being organized. It was this sort of fractured people that he said, "Hey, I'm the answer. I'm the
yeah,
remedy. I got you." And you know
yeah,
what people are realizing now? It's the Venezuelan and a Cuban that voted for him, the Venezuelan that got their TPS taken away and
yeah,
said, "Wait a minute, you weren't moving in good faith like you said. Wait a minute, Project 2025 was real. Wait a minute,
yeah.
what happened here?"
But
You
see,
know,
we could have
so
told you that. See, we could have, if there had been relationship We could have told you that. But on the street, our relationship between black and Latino is just like on Sanford and Son between Fred and Julio. See what I'm saying?
Speak on
It's the
that
same.
for our younger viewers that may not know. Talk about that relationship.
Yeah, well, Julio, who was Puerto Rican, moved into Watts, which was predominantly African American, and Fred freaked out, and his main thing was, I don't want any Puerto Ricans living. And
And now
so,
you see Puerto Rican and New York, it's all one and the same,
oh
man, you
yeah, oh
know?
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. But see, listening to that type of satire back in the day, it was teaching you the social dynamics, right? And so now when things get so desensitized or so sensitized, right? And a lot of speech is being censored, you're not able to get that level of familiarity that's necessary, right? In order for us to move forward. So with the solving the Latino problem is going to be, Latinos are going to have to learn from the civil rights movement and duplicate what Martin Luther King, duplicate what W.B. Du Bois, duplicate what took place then, because you're dealing with the same people. You're just dealing with the grandchildren of those folks that were trying to do what they did in the 50s and 60s, and they're using the same playbook. They used federal agents in the ghetto. They used all of these types of things, the max prisons that they're building now. Yeah, the new type of prisoner is the political prisoner. See, that's who's going. The
Yeah,
political prisoner is going.
you're
So
right.
you're going to have people snatched off the street because of what they say. You're going to have people assassinated, right? You're going to have all of those types of things to take place because that's what happened to the Black Panther Party. See, that's what happened to Fred Hampton. That's what happened to Bobby Seale, Huey Newton, H. Rap Brown. You see what I'm saying? All at Kathleen Cleaver, Elaine Brown, Angela Davis. You see, so all of these types of things are things that we have studied. But when I first got started, I said, if you could get a study group to read, just read. That sounds like I'm talking to my students. Just read it.
Yeah.
Read the letter from a Birmingham jail.
We'll start
Just read
there.
it.
That's
Yeah.
our homework, everybody. We're going to read the letter from what is it? Letter from a Birmingham jail, Martin Luther King
Absolutely.
Jr.
Absolutely.
I love
Absolutely.
that.
And he will show you in the letter what all you have to do, right? In order to enact what is called direct action, because that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, we're
Direct.
here. You know, this is an active service. You've heard me. You invited me to speak in Montgomery. You know my take on journalism. You know I don't believe in objectivity. I think we're all subjective. I believe in fairness, and I also believe that this is an ultimate active service. And if you're just
Yeah.
joining the conversation, you're joined by just what a gem, man. Dr. Robert White out of Alabama State University, HBCU Legal Fund, a son of Tuskegee, and a professor in Montgomery.
Yeah.
We have a few more minutes left on the show. Is there anything that you're working on right now, or anything that you'd like to highlight or
Yeah.
talk about?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I have been given some very, very precious artifacts from the civil rights movement. In particular, one of the lead investigator for the 16th Street bombing, right, that took place in Birmingham, right? His name is Robert Eddy. His family left me all of his notes and his files and his photos and the stuff of that event. And he was the lead investigator, and he investigated the Klan. He investigated
wow.
them and hunted them down all throughout the South. They could run, but they couldn't hide, right? And so that story is amazing. So we're doing a series of radio shows on it, and
Love it.
we're trying to find some funds to do a video documentary of it, because we've gotten video. I mean, we got all types of things. So, that's why I say, knowing the nature of what it is that you're up against. See, it's a spiritual thing, right?
I
It's
know,
not
I know.
something, yeah, and you can't neglect that, because uh, another thing that you're suffering from when you read Letter from a Birmingham Jail, there was one group. See, because I'm from Alabama, I'm accustomed to dealing with white racist people. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't bother me, meaning I'm accustomed to it, right? But what Martin Luther King was so insulted by, and what I'm insulted by, and Malcolm X was insulted by, and anybody who was really on the forefront getting their butt kicked, on a day-to-day basis, they were insulted by white moderates who tended to go liberal.
Wow.
Now that's a deep one, isn't it? He said that was the sorriest group you would ever run into. He said that they have no spine, they have no courage, they just want to sit back and go with whatever is comfortable and convenient. And so that's what we're having to deal with, and that's what you're having to deal with, right? There, I'm sure, are a lot of Latinos that are sitting on the fence, that are so comfortable, right? And feel that way, right? That they will be able to assimilate, right? And so we call it in the black community the illusion of inclusion. You think those jokers actually like you. See, that's your that's your misconception. Well, they don't. They'll tolerate you. And see, Nick, when your goose was cooked when you won that Emmy. That's what happened. When you won that Emmy, that was it. Those people didn't want to tolerate that. You see what I'm saying?
I know.
You done got too high and mighty, so now we got to knock you down a little bit. And so that's why going on your own is always an inevitable thing, because success for the revolutionary class always brings with it a reprisal, right, from the oppression class. You see what I'm saying? Which means that you're punished for what you do good, not what you do bad.
And I'm going to tell you something. It comes from my father and it comes from my mom.
Yeah.
There, I was in that, and I clawed tooth and nail to get to the very top, right? And if not for the way I was raised by my mom and dad, I would have been very comfortable in that
Mm,
elitism
yeah.
and turned my nose up at the other. And
Yeah.
for whatever reason, I always continue to be, not for whatever reason, it's because of how I was raised. It's because I saw my dad put his arm around the slouched shoulders of the men of society, the
Yeah.
recovered
Yeah.
alcoholic, the person
Yeah.
that was you saw coming and you'd cross to the other side of the street. I
Yeah.
saw my dad go meet that person,
Yeah.
and for
Yeah.
me, that's what I want to teach my kids, Ricky. That's what I want to teach my kids. That's what I want
Well,
to teach my
and that's
kids.
what you're doing. But see, also, Nick, see, the beautiful thing about this is that the process that I would love to teach y'all, right? The process that I would love, like the ladies that were on last week, the
Yeah,
sister that was on today, I would love to teach them about the purification process. See, because here's the thing: when you jump out there, your own personal shortcomings are gonna be magnified. Okay. You see what I'm saying? To the point to where you think you're not worthy of doing this because you have to be perfect to do it. That is a lie from the pit of hell. It's actually the exact opposite, which means that when you begin this process, the process is self purifying, which means that a lot of the stuff that you are dealing with and struggling with as an individual will be dealt with as you struggle. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
So the streets are full of people that got drug problems, that got alcohol problems, that got identity problems. That bring your problems with you. Okay.
Dr. Robert White, we're going to end it
Hey,
there. We're going to end it there. Thank you, my brother. Thank you, man. I
Black
really
power, brown
appreciate you. We're
power.
going to
That's
have you
it.
back on. I want you on as a regular guest because this conversation, it's the optics matter. Having the two of us together matter. The stuff
Right.
that you're saying, the homework that you've given us, all of that matters. Dr. Robert White, HBCU Legal Fund, professor at Alabama State University. God bless you, man. Have a great day
God
on
bless.
purpose. All right. Thank you, man. Wow. Wow. Two great guests today. Felicia Rangel-Samponaro with the Sidewalk School and Dr. Robert White. He just joined us there for a great conversation. And we want to leave you here today. We talked about it at the start of the show. Chicago is an epicenter for the action of the federal agents who are part of Trump's deportation army. And you have some Democratic lawmakers there, principally the governor and Brandon Johnson, who I met earlier this summer at the NAHJ conference, the mayor of Chicago, speaking out and speaking up. I want to play that clip 2 days ago of the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson.
To throw a crying mother to the floor who just wanted to be reunited with her children, this is not being tough or patriotic. It's abominable. It's not law and order to body slam a 79-year-old business owner, an American citizen, for trying to produce the papers of his employees. And there's nothing brave about firing pepper bullets with chemical agents at a Chicago CBS reporter for simply showing up to do her job. Greg Bovino, who spends countless taxpayer dollars on TikTok videos of himself, was in charge of the operation in Los Angeles, where a 15-year-old kid, an American citizen with disabilities, was handcuffed and held at gunpoint by ICE. His family is now suing. By the time this is over, there will be hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars wasted in settlements related to the excessive use of force and the unconstitutional actions of this administration. Let's make this very clear. This is not about public safety. This is not even about immigration. This is a continuation of the Trump administration's war on the poor. They have cut food assistance, they have cut Medicaid, they have cut violence prevention funding. They have made life harder and more dangerous for poor and working people across this country. They have declared war on poor on behalf of the ultra-rich, so they can simply funnel our tax dollars to a small handful of billionaires. This is an untrustworthy, corrupt, and out-of-control administration that is doing everything in their power to foment chaos in our cities. Whether it's in Portland, Los Angeles, or Chicago, we cannot accept the militarization of our cities.
This is never about law and order. This is about the guise of law and order. This is about rules for them and rules for the rest of us. This is about moving in bad faith. This is about lying to the American people. This is about singling out brown faces on the streets of America, like me, like my kids. This is where we're at in 2025, where American cities are being sieged, under siege, by masked federal agents who refuse to identify themselves, who drive in cars with Mexican flags to try to entrap people. This is what we're in for here, where we have to fear for our own personal safety, for living in a democratic country where we have the First Amendment to be able to hold the powerful accountable. And yet we're dealing with a president who acts like a baby when negative things are said about him, who says he only punches back when we know that that's not true. You heard Dr. Robert White say it. There's nothing new under the sun. And it's our Latino community now that's being singled out and having to deal with what's happening right now. We're in it for the long haul. Our team here at Nick Valencia News is in it for the long haul. We want to let you know that we have another trip planned here. We're going to be heading off to Massachusetts, where we will follow up on the story of Venezuelan migrants who were shipped off there by Governor Ron DeSantis and Texas Governor Abbott, and follow up with what happened to those nearly 50 Venezuelan migrants who were dropped off on the doorstep of Martha's Vineyard. It was earlier today, I spoke with the reverend at a church that acted as a shelter for some of those migrants, and she told me that 2 to 3 of those families actually stayed in Martha's Vineyard. We are going to go follow up with those families and see the kind of life that they're leading now in this country. And remember, those migrants, because of what they were put through and trafficked by elected officials, they were eligible for asylum claims. So we're going to see what life is like for these 2 to 3 Venezuelan families. Thank you guys for so much for supporting independent journalism. Thank you so much for supporting us here. Truth matters. Truth matters. Words matter. Actions matter. Don't sit on the sidelines, guys. If you hear anything today from our guests, it's that your action and your involvement matter. And your contributions, your support, just watching the show, liking, subscribing, sharing, all that, help us make truth go viral. And as always, guys, have a great day on purpose. Thanks, everyone.